Good afternoon, board members, staff, members of the audience, citizens. Let the record show that today is October the 6th. The time is 3 p.m. and we will now call the Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is now approved, and we will move on to the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Heavenly Father, bless those who are here today. Dear Lord, we ask that you bless our public safety members. We ask that you bless those in the front lines of healthcare. We ask that you bless those who are sick, their families, and those who are troubled. Dear Lord, we ask that you give this board the wisdom to make good decisions for Amherst County, but most of all, to make decisions that are pleasing to you. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move on to citizen comments. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? No one has signed up. Seeing and hearing none, we will now close citizen comments. And board members, our next item is a public hearing. But before we can get to that point, we need to suspend the rules in order to hold this public hearing, which is a special exception to do so. In order for the rules suspension to pass, it needs to be unanimous. Is there a motion to suspend the rules in order to hold this public hearing?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules for this public hearing.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The record show that this was a unanimous decision. We will now open up the public hearing for our solar ordinance. Mr. Bryant.
Good afternoon, thank you. Let's see, beginning earlier this summer, the county's been receiving requests from solar.
Jeremy, is your mic on? Hold the button forward.
Okay, better?
Much. Thank you.
Okay. Beginning earlier this summer, the county's has received requests from solar companies and local landowners regarding a potential siting of a solar electricity generation facility in Amherst County. Since then, community development staff and the county attorney's office have been working to draft a proposed language. Solar America has recently obtained the opportunity to interconnect with AEP's APCO's electrical grid and has requested that we move forward on opening up opportunities for solar generation facilities in Amherst County. In general, this ordinance breaks down solar generation in three main categories. Small facilities, which are primarily restrained to your home and the parcels that serve your dwelling and or that site. An agricultural solar ordinance, which allows for up to 1.5 megawatts per site. In general, that's about 12 to 15 acres of land. 1.5 megawatts, watts is somewhere between 12 and 15 acres of land. And then utility scale solar. Okay. There are two changes that I'd like to bring to your attention that I would like to request as you consider this ordinance that's before you. And I'll walk through this some more. On page 5, section 711 is the mixed-use traditional neighborhood development district. That district is only found in the zoning ordinance. We don't have anything zoned mixed-use traditional neighborhood development, even though we may anticipate that in the future. Staff recommends that we only allow solar as small scale as by right in that district. It's very similar to it's a residential district primarily. We don't foresee large agricultural or utility scale solar going into the mixed use traditional neighborhood district. We couldn't manipulate that table the way it's written in Communicode. So I'm going to ask that you consider it as by right for small scale solar in the mixed use district in 711. I'll stay here. Does that make sense, what I'm asking? Okay. Number 2 is a typographical error. The second change is on page 9. In 923.05 under development standards for utility scale solar, we say in the second sentence, the following developments should apply to all agricultural and utility scale. I'd like to request that you cross out the word agriculture. These development standards here in 923.05 are for utility scale solar. Okay, so what we're asking you to do is take out the word agriculture and put the word and. Okay.
What section?
There's 923.05 on page number 9.
At the very bottom.
At the very bottom. It should only apply to utility scale. We have standards for agriculture. Does that make sense?
So you do have standards for both.
Yeah, correct. In general, for agricultural solar and for utility scale solar, there's a 150-foot setback. We also have requirements for landscaping and for providing a fence. Some unique qualities of this ordinance have to do with, there are requirements for wildlife habitat. It might seem strange, and it did for me when I first started reviewing solar ordinances, but many of these utility scale projects can be very large in scale. I've talked to some of my colleagues in Campbell County who've approved a 600-acre solar farm. It's a lot of land taken by solar. The one that we anticipate being proposed by Solar America, who's with us today, to talk about well, not their specific project, but to add to this, they want to do approximately a 35 to 40 acre facility in Amherst. But part of this ordinance will require that to be determined and discussed as part of the application, wildlife passages, so some openings in the solar, and even pollinator plants to be put back. Again, learning curve for me, but as I dug in, the Department of Quality and the Department of Conservation and Recreation provide a lot of guidance and information on pollinator species and how important they are to agriculture. And so I support those things in this ordinance that I think will add quality to it. Again, in general, you're going to, the one that is going to be proposed to in the upcoming months will be a utility scale solar application that will come to you as a special section request. And it'll be something you will see. Do you have any questions on this request at this time?
Any questions, board members? I've got one. Now that we're considering such an ordinance, what about any solar farms that are already in the county? Does this impact them? So they're grandfathered in? Thank you.
Looks like the Scrivener's there on top of page 10. Numbering schedule 1, there's no paragraph.
Yes, sir, there is.
So that's fine.
Yes.
I guess my question is, so the infrastructure that goes along with these utility scale, that's the large one, right?
Correct.
Is that taxable or not?
Yes. And there's a depreciation schedule that the State Corporation Commission puts out.
Mr. Pugh, I know that you were at the public, the planning commission hearings here. Do you have any questions there that concerns you?
I do not at this time. I think it's pretty well stated. Appreciate Mr. Bryant's work. It's good to hear there's things like that. Wildlife passages and pollinators, of course, some people might bat their eyes at that, but I mean, some of these, like you said, 600 acres, that is definitely something you would notice and see, and it's good that we're taking the environment into our thoughts as we go about this process.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. All right, we will now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Yes, sir, come forward. Just give us your name and address.
My name is Brian Peters. My address is 1819 Peachtree Road, Suite 100, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309. I'm with Solar America, and I just wanted to, I'll be the one coming up and presenting our project here, hopefully in about a month. But I wanted to speak in favor of this ordinance. I think Mr. Bryant and his team did a very good job of pulling this together. It's a very good ordinance. It's thorough. We as a company, we like pollinators, so we like to see those kind of cohabitated with solar developments. And we appreciate his work on pulling this together, and we look forward to working with the county moving forward. Thank you.
Any questions, board members? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Come forward, please. Give us your name and address.
Bob Hopkins, Director, Amherst County Service Authority. I have to admit, I'm not that familiar with the ordinance and what it entails, and whether what I'm working on would have any benefit or get a benefit from the ordinance. But for the last at least a year, I've been trying to
I've been looking at doing a solar panel project as a water plant. Our monthly water bills are between $7,000 and $8,000. And I would like to, you know, almost $100,000 a year. And I've been talking, I just talked to somebody, I think from Solar America was that you?
It was a counterpart of mine.
Okay, just last week about it. And so it's not looking real promising right now, but I am still looking at it. And so if this ordinance would have any benefit to helping that project go forward, if I can find a way to make it work, I'm all for it. So I hope you would.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here who would like to speak opposed to this ordinance? Anyone here who'd like to speak opposed? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close the public hearing and move to the board. Board members, what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt ordinance number 2020-0012 as amended. What Mr. Bryant spoke
All right.
about.
And Mr. Bryant, you've got a good record of those for the, okay. All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Board members, any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is now approved. And we'll move on to the first read of the cigarette tax ordinance. Mr. Lockaby.
That's mine,
You don't
because it's
need that
actually, it's Ms. Wilkes's, but I'm going to do my best imitation. So this ordinance is designed to implement the plan that we had talked about earlier in the year to have business tax equity changes. The business tax equity changes that we previously adopted abolished the merchant's capital tax and restructured how we do the default tax. This, however, would look at an entirely different situation, which is the cigarette tax. The cigarette tax is a new tax which has just been authorized by the General Assembly this past year. It's going to go into effect July 1 of 2021. It has historically been limited to only cities and towns that could do it. It's been opened up to counties as part of a partial equalization of tax authority between counties and municipalities in the state. This ordinance is set up as a fairly standard way of doing it. It's not dissimilar to the way that Lynchburg does it. I actually based it most off of the city of Covington's ordinance just because I had the research handy for that, because one of my coworkers had recently done a revision to it, so I happened to have all the research handy. But it's fairly typical of how cities have done it for decades. There is one thing, we have received a couple of comments Mr. Rogers has received regarding this. One of those relates to the definition of a stamp, and it's a relatively minor thing that just relates to how Ms. Carden would deal with this, and the comment that we got was well taken in my opinion. The state code does require us to use a particular definition of stamp, which is not how cities have done it. There was a change in 2012, which I know seems like a long time ago, but most cities have amended their ordinances and I didn't catch it. There was also a request for us to allow people to give an affidavit in lieu of purchasing stamps. I say people, this meaning retailers, in lieu of purchasing stamps in the case that the treasurer's office runs out of stamps. That's purely discretionary from your perspective, but I thought that I would pass along that comment. The key way that this would work, it is 27 cents per pack or 1.35 cents per cigarette. The way that it would predominantly work is that somebody would go to Ms. Carden's office and they would buy a roll of stamps, which can either be affixed by hand or they can be run through a machine. Running through a machine is typically the way that a large operation is going to do it. And that's pretty much how it works. If you don't use all of your stamps and you go out of business, you can return the stamps and get a refund from Ms. Carden. It's a fairly straightforward thing. Unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot more about it. You need to talk to Ms. Carden or Ms. Wilkes more about the details of how that's done, but relatively straightforward.
Mr. Lockaby, it's an average of $2.70 per carton. Is that right?
27 cents, well, so there's
Yeah,
10 packs per
yeah.
carton, so yeah, $2.70 per carton. Yes, ma'am. It's been a long time since I bought a carton.
Board members, any questions of Mr. Lockaby?
I do have a question. So on the stamps, so the retailers would be required to purchase the stamps prior to selling the cigarettes?
That's right. And then you put the stamp on the pack of cigarettes. I mean, it's not like I see a lot of packs of cigarettes in my life, but you've seen the little
blue
stamp on the bottom of it. It's a little blue stamp.
So is that normally how it works then?
Mhm.
So they're paying the tax up front on how many cigarettes they think they might sell?
And then they can always return the stamps for a refund if they don't sell.
And that's how it's done in other locales?
That's how the state tax is done.
Any further questions? All right, Richard. What's your pleasure, y'all? Want to move this on to second reading?
Madam Chair, I move that the board forward the cigarette tax ordinance to public hearing at the board's second October meeting.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Old business.
Just one thing, if it's all right by y'all, I'm going to make that slight amendment to the definition of stamp. You aren't approving anything in first read, you're just approving the public hearing, but before this goes out to advertisement again, I will make that up too.
Okay. And Mr. Rogers, the letters, the emails that we saw in our packet are all that have been received thus far, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Other than the emails that I forwarded to Mr. Lockaby with regard to, definitional and like other localities for him to consider. I did not forward those to you.
Okay.
And they're not in the packet.
All right, moving on to the Public Works list. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Tucker and board. So you have a list in front of you. It's a modified list from last time in terms of order of importance. It's referred to as BOS List 1. And with the $6 million borrowing limit, that's what we're recommending through Public Works to start with, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
This is a hot topic yesterday, board members.
So the items in blue would definitely be funded. The items in yellow would be funded if the 6 million option is exercised.
Yes, sir. If you start with 5 million, meaning 4 million is already invested, the additional 1 million equaling 5 would be roughly the blue. As you can see, the blue doesn't equal exactly 1 million because the prices vary. Some of the amounts are suggested, some of it we may discount, some of it we may do away with. And then the yellow would be if you exercise the $6 million option.
So B4 is 34-yard self-contained recycled compactors that would replace existing 20-yard recycled dumpsters. Right, that's $800,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm assuming the need to do compactors would let you have more recyclables prior to emptying them?
That's correct. So a typical haul is less than a ton in a 20-yard container, which is what we have now. So first you're adding 60% more cubic yardage, meaning a 34 yard instead of a 20, and you add a compaction ratio of about 3.5 to 1. So instead of hauling 3/4 of a load of plastics out, you're hauling 4 to 5 tons of plastic out, cutting the hauls considerably down and having a marketing commodity at this point. If in fact plastic ever hits a profit, we can haul it elsewhere instead of just down the road to break even or pay a little bit of money for it.
So, yeah, Madam Chair, I'm open to suggestions, but if it was, as far as my thought on this would be is, I would probably move the prospective Burley Hollow site up to B4 instead of doing the other. Because I'd like to see some more convenience for our citizens in terms of convenience sites. And I'm glad to see the one in that.
And I agree with you, Mr. Martin, on Burley Hollow, being able to locate something there. But I do want to pursue the conversation with the recycle compactors because, recycling has been an issue for me, as you know. So this recycle compactor would only do plastic, or could it do anything?
You can do anything you want. I had it for plastics, aluminum, which we do receive considerable funds back on, and we have stationery for cardboard, self-contained. It was a newspaper, mixed paper and newspaper would be the other two. So each site that can contain recycled containers would swap these out with 4 compactors if we had the money. If we run out of money between now and then, we'd only do the ones that bring us revenue back, such as aluminum containers.
And Madam Chair, I'm not suggesting we abandon recycling at all. I mean, we would still recycle, it would just be frequent hauls, is my understanding.
So B4, do I read this would be 20, you find 20 pieces of equipment?
Right, if you look at the BOS list 2, it outlines what B4 stands for, which is 4 compactors per site, 5 total sites, and that Dodge store cannot handle any more room. We cannot put any recycling containers there other than what we have. Each one would be approximately $40,000 to install and purchase.
And the other X factor is the prospective Burley Hollow site. There is no land currently. We don't have land there.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So, I mean, you're basically putting the cart before the horse by saying you're going to build it when we know we don't have the land.
I
know you're looking at it and you would try to, but we don't know the price of that land. We don't know how much it would be. And so you're basically saying, once they found that out, they can name their price on the piece of property.
Mr. Pugh, the prioritization here for Madison Heights was in fact because we own the property and because it's a more highly populated and dense area. Burley Hollow, we do have Dodge store, which is not terribly convenient. Again, I remind all of you, we do have now 3 waste haulers in the county, of which some of those service that area of Burley Hollow, which wasn't an item before, it was not available.
And I have preached, I have told everybody, well, listen to me about those haulers.
I know that at Coolwell, it does receive a lot of traffic. My other question, at our last meeting, I believe it was about $830,000 or so we were looking to pull out of our reserve from the landfill. That was what the plan was based on previously from Draper Aiden. What is the plan with that reserve money now if we do go forward with the, say, $5 million option? We save a lot of that money because now we're taking a loan out versus paying the equipment through the reserve fund. Is there a plan, or you just what is the plan with that additional funding of the reserve?
I'm actually not sure what you're referring to. I know we have a reserve for the landfill, for the care and closing of the landfill.
The Draper Aiden study said you were going to pull $830,000 out of there to buy equipment for the transfer station. I can pull it up. I don't.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that equipment,
I mean, does it just stay in the reserve?
yes.
And then what happens when, and you have that money and it's not being used? That's my question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think we're conflating a couple of things here, so if I can paraphrase.
Sure.
What I gather is of the $6 million loan, $4 million is allocated for the transfer station and all of it's setting up.
Mhm.
Now we have a $1 million option and a $2 million option.
Yes.
So that money you're referring to was voted on by the board last time to go back. We're now at $4 million again with the option of borrowing 2 more. So that money you're referring to, for lack of a better term, doesn't exist because you've not authorized us to borrow those funds. We're at $4 million of that.
No, I don't think that's not his question. I think I understand the question. We have a landfill reserve.
We have a
We're gonna
landfill
draw
reserve.
from that reserve. We're gonna build a transfer station, and we're gonna pull from the reserve to help buy the equipment. Well, now we're gonna use this loan money to buy that equipment.
Yeah.
What's the plan for that 800,000 in the reserve? I need Stacy here. She's off this week. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, it's just a question, I'd like to know, I mean, are those funds usable? Can we use them to purchase equipment? That would be my question.
I will find that answer out and email it to you all.
Or is it better to keep it in reserve in case we run into a problem with the landfill? But I think we've already kept a certain amount for post-closure out of that reserve. So I'd just like an answer on that, I mean.
Yeah, what's the plan for that? Are those funds unused? Have they been used for something else? Are they included in this? I understand the question.
Mr. Rogers, help me understand. I support doing something in Burley Hollow, as you know. But I don't want us to sit around waiting. I know we've got to spend this money in a reasonable amount of time. So how would that work? Would we, help me out here.
Well, that money has to be spent within 3 years.
That's
right.
right.
So it's a lot of assumptions, which is why Burley Hollow was pushed to the bottom, acquiring the land and then engineering it and building it for a convenient site within 3 years. Seems unlikely.
Madam Chair, I don't really want to speak in public
Okay.
about that, but I can tell you that there are 2 separate parcels and 2 separate owners. One has actually set a price, and the other one has expressed willingness, not necessarily to sell, but at least to long-term lease. And so if one's willing to sell and the other's at least willing to long-term lease, those 2, I'm not held hostage by only one. So I can explore those further if the board so directs. But the challenge for today is we have to have a clear decision today so that the bond council can take that forward to the resources authority.
Board members, do you have any more questions on this one? Brian? All right, what's your pleasure?
Well, I told you what my thought was.
Bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page there.
So I would be prepared to make a motion to opt to pursue the $6 million option with the prospective Burley Hollow site moved up to B4.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Nay.
All right, let the record show that we've got a 4-1 vote.
3-1, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, 3-1 vote with Mr. Peavy being the nay.
Just to confirm, you now want the self-contained compactors to be at the bottom of the list at C5. You're swapping.
No,
No.
it just moves down one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we present the entire list.
All right, new business. Ms. Bryant, give me just a minute, I gotta, computer's being a little slow here, okay.
So, Madam Chair, I've asked Mr. Bryant to come forward and talk about several proposals that he has to fix our recruiting dearth, to help us fill the slots that we've had so much trouble filling for so long. And ultimately, of course, this will help us with our response times, which I know the board is keenly concerned about.
Right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. So what you have in front of you is some pretty decent work. They're not just my ideas, they're ideas from our command staff. Jared Scott and I worked hard on this, and Joey Kerr as well. But I'll be glad to go through it. Some of it will be educational for you. It's kind of how EMS works now and what we're facing as a nation in EMS. And I'll just start off with we're in unprecedented times this year, and year's not over. I think most people know that. It's been active, historic, and we've had a large loss of life with COVID-19. So this is the plan that I have to offer that would fix and help us with public safety recruiting. An educational receipt incentive, right now currently there's $400 available for a class of college level work. That doesn't attract the guys that I'm competing with in other localities very well, but it is gracious and appreciate it. The majority of EMS training happens at the community college. It's not driven into volunteer rescue squads anymore. Unfortunately, they do not exist. We have a few dedicated volunteer EMS people in our county that will roll on with public safety. There are currently 5 EMS certification levels that we can utilize. EMT is the beginning. In the advanced EMT, they can take care of a diabetic patient or give you breathing treatment. EMT intermediate, that's going away. That was supported at the national level. It's now going away by the National Registry and the National Standard Curriculum. The top level is paramedic and advanced practice paramedic. We can assess you, treat you, do 12-lead EKG, send you to a hospital. If you're hurt really bad, whether it's medical or trauma, we can sedate you, clinically paralyze you, put the breathing tube in, put you on a ventilator, save your life, and get you to where the surgeons or the doctors can save you. And I'll say that we're trained to recognize signs and symptoms, but a lot of times that we can figure out and feel what's going on. And people are living longer with more complex medical conditions that we're trained to manage. This past fall, we did a pilot, really last year. We were successful in taking EMTs and sent them to the community college through a grant, and we created advanced level EMTs. Those guys and girls can start IVs on you, give you breathing treatment if you're asthmatic. We did that in one semester. We actually made about $100 per student, which was interesting. Didn't know it was going to work out that way. They have clinical time, ride time on a different ambulance other than ours. They have to take an examination and to successfully complete the program. That was through CBCC and Virginia Office of EMS Workforce Grant. We have the guys sign a contract to repay the educational expenses should they not pass the class with 100% pass rate with that, with our support and their hard work. Advanced level ALS providers, the advanced EMT and EMT intermediate are more difficult to hire. There are a lot of ALS people out there. They're great. That's the first thing I do as a paramedic, because BLS comes first. But the ALS people are harder to find. There's a lot of competition. It takes longer to make them. They are the first step in saving lives, and it's the most important thing we do. There's more than to choose from because they're younger. They can take this in high school, and as soon as they get out of college, you can go to community college and become from zero to hero in EMT in 10 weeks, 7 to 10 weeks. You don't have a lot of experience. You need to get out there and get it, but they do make them that fast. We have a discussion currently with CBCC. Basically, Lynchburg Fire Department, Silly, Charlottesville, and Roanoke came together and said, hey, this 2-year paramedic program is not cutting it. We need you to make a paramedic that's not degreed within 9 to 12 months. So we had a good discussion on that on 1 October. I just did a survey on it. We're interested in it. The cost is about $9,000 to $10,000 versus about $15,000 per year or so for the regular paramedic program where you get an associate's degree. So that's an active conversation is very interested in. Our medical director is very interested in, and I think that she'll probably sign off on it as a region. Community college, Jason Ferguson is very involved in it as well. He was one of the founding people in our paid EMS system in 2003, and he's over that program. It takes longer for the 2-year degree, and it costs twice as much. So we're not getting away from education, but we'd like to see if we can get paramedics made and then help them finish their 2-year degree and can go on to a bachelor's degree. A lot of the people that I work with in the business that we're in, the bachelor's degree is almost like a high school education now. It's very competitive, and most people are chasing that. We have a mix of people walking through our ranks right now. I just saw Emily Pratt. She's our newest hire. We've hired 2 people. We're on the way to hiring a 3rd, maybe a 4th. We had 5 openings, so we're rapidly closing that gap with good people. But they're not just paramedics that are dropping out of the sky on a paramedic on a parachute. This young lady tests for her paramedic in spring. So she's going to walk through the door as an EMT. She's a high performer. We know that from our background check and the polygraph and physical that she had and talking to the people after we interviewed her. But they basically are she's willing to get hired early, finish her degree program, and work here as a paramedic. She'll be required to take her certification test in spring 21. They're already signing a contract that Mr. Lockley worked on for our advanced EMT. We're working on contracts for people that we hire that don't have fire training. We put them through our fire academy. That's a tough academy. Tom Martin helps teach it. It's state of the art. They learn a lot, but we want them to sign an agreement or a contract. We put them in $3,000 worth of custom foot turnout gear, and if they come to us to just get experience and go somewhere else, we'd like to hold on for 2 or 3 years. I want to do the same thing with the paramedic. And these are all ideas for your consideration. So we're already working on that for the firefighter contract, but we'd like that as the, as the paramedic as well. The cost of schooling is understood at this point to be approximately $15,000 a year. I said that, 2-year program. This would help us grow our emergency medical service provider pool, which is a regional shortage. The meeting I was in 1 October had the Chief of Lynchburg Fire Department, Greg Wormser. He's very vocal about it. Other localities were involved. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do with paramedicine in the future. There are so few of them now, and people that are unfortunately getting out of the business sometimes or changing, they're changing careers. I think they're going to command a higher salary. We were very fortunate that you guys saw the need in girls and helped us with that back in July. So we're ahead of that. We have a lot of interest in our county now. I'm talking to people almost every day, which is a big change, that hit me up about, hey, what's Amherst County doing? They see what we're doing. But this is our little window to fix this and make it better, so we don't have to spend our time always working on these things, because the number one thing that we do other than be safe is staff the ambulances. And that takes a great deal of time and effort that takes away from all the other things that we need to be doing. For my job as the chief, I need to be 5 years forward. I need to be thinking 5 years forward. Jared and I kill ourselves with staffing and trying to hire people right now. That's what we're doing. Certification bonus. This is another thing you can think of. It's a reasonable single annual payment for additional education, responsibility, and workload for that level of certification. The BLS advanced person, the people that we made last year, it would be a $1,000 annual bonus. Paramedic life support, that would be $2,500 annually. And the ALS paramedic, the top level paramedic that can do the work of an anesthesiologist in a ditch and save you, so that the docs can take good care of you. That's a $4,000 annual bonus. When you compare this to Lynchburg Fire Department, some of their bonuses are as much as $7,500, just to give you a comparison. The accelerated paramedic level, the paramedic level that I'm at, and some of the other paramedics are, just a handful of us, that requires one-on-one doctor level work. They look at every one of our reports. They look for things because we're doing very high level work. But the accelerated program, if we can get that off, if we can get that kicked off and make a paramedic in 9 to 12 months, I'm a product of that. I did my paramedic program in 1 year. I was a paramedic before I finished my associate's degree. It worked out pretty well. I've been a paramedic for almost 40 years. I've learned a lot along the way. Still treat signs and symptoms. It's nice when we know what's going on with the patient. But I think we can make them faster and then help them get their education a little bit later or along the way to get them in the workforce. Worked pretty hard on the age restriction. I was able to get with our current insurance company and was able to have good talk with them and with our driving record. We've been handicapped at 21 years old. Other localities have been 18, 19 years old. They've agreed to lower the driving age requirement with 3 years worth of driving experience to 19 years old, and no additional cost to our insurance. They have to take a class called EVOC, which we have anyway. It's how to drive a fire engine or ambulance. And also have annual training on safe driving. Now we're looking at this very closely for our ambulances. We would have to segue over into fire engines and squads and then the gears are turning on what he's going to do with a 19-year-old kid driving a vehicle that weighs 50,000 pounds or something crazy. But this is great for us. We can get this done because we can attract them earlier before everybody else gets them. 12-hour shifts. There's been some talk about 12-hour shifts for us. If you do that, I have to hire more people. I need about 6 more people. Each person's about 50,000. So that's a lot of money. Our guys like the 24-hour shifts. They like working 10 days a month and having 20 days off. That's pretty awesome. I do miss that shift, but it doesn't work for what my responsibilities are. And they are working overtime. We've limited our people to 36 hours. At a whack, some departments close by are doing 48. But unfortunately, some departments are so short-staffed they're doing 72 hours. I want to advocate for that. Your performance level as a paramedic goes down somewhere after 36 hours. So, and we encourage them to come in, check their truck, check the equipment on the truck, clean the station up. If they're going to be on for a long shift, get your combat map. Get our training done. I want the guys to rest and look out for them. The fourth crew, we do need a fourth crew. We've got 2 people for the fourth crew. I would need 4 more. An additional ambulance would definitely reduce the response times that everyone is concerned about. I met 2 Sundays ago with Chief Malott of the Nelson Volunteer Fire Department. We moved to Station 3 out in Elam. that truck could go right and go to Madison Heights, or it could go left at the Flint Springs Turnpike. If I had that truck, I feel like I could leave the ambulance and cover there a lot more often. Unfortunately, that truck is only catching 3 to 4% of our call volume. When I leave it there, it's just late on the call at Amherst or Madison Heights. Do I wake up at 3 to 4 in the morning worry about that? Yes, ma'am, I do. I truly do. I need the 4th truck. I'd like to see the 4th truck. It's going to help us. And if we don't get it right now, initially I'll start off as a power shift as we get full of people, and we'll manage it that way. But in the future, you're going to need a 4th truck. The one thing we'll never beat, even with the 4th truck, is when we get all the calls at one time. That's a really hard thing to beat. We get the guys to turn around really quick from the hospital, or we vacate the office and want to call, depending on the nature of the call. That's what we do. And then you get to your work late at night when no one's there and people are done. But that's a big character. But that's pretty much it. The 4th crew would cost you an additional $200,000. We have trucks, we just need people. I have a new truck coming in November that was half paid for by Virginia Office of EMS grant, very appreciative of that. And then the CARES funding is helping us with the smaller European truck that could go to Station 3, that would fit in that station right beside the fire engine. We have some work to do to update the kitchen and some HVAC and get a shower in there. But that's where I would put the truck if I had. You guys have any questions?
Oh, boy, do we ever.
I'm sure you do.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Moore.
Can you tell me the makeup of your staff currently? How many EMTs, how many EMT advanced, paramedics? How many people do you have in the department now?
I am missing 3 people, okay, right now. But I've got another one that's gonna walk through the door. We're gonna negotiate with that person right now. We have advanced level EMTs filling in paramedic spots right now. The largest percentage of our calls were about 80% BLS calls. Now, who do you want to take care of you if you're hurt or sick? Most people are gonna say that paramedic is not needed all the time. But, things change with people.
Sam,
Yes,
how many of each?
I don't have the breakdown right in front of me. I have less ALS people than BLS people, I can tell you that. The people that you're replacing or we're replacing are the 5 ALS people that I was missing. When I'm fully staffed, I have 27 people, and that's including the 4 people in the office, so you can say 23. There's 7 per shift, so there's 2 on each ambulance, 1 ALS and 1 BLS, and a captain when we have the staffing for that. So 7 run the 3 ambulance, 2 per ambulance, so 3 ambulances and 6 people, 1 captain.
And your captain is a paramedic?
The captain is a paramedic, but there are days when we're short leave, notice leave, sickness, injury, that captain comes off the captain's truck and goes on the ambulance. That's correct.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Sure.
And I don't expect you to know this right now, but I would be interested in how frequently all 3 crews are running calls and we have a 4th call come in.
Okay, I can find that out.
I feel like it's happening more frequently,
It is.
and I'd like to know.
So when that happens, I go on a delay response mode, and there's less than 2 calls, and sometimes I have to wait. And if there's a question about it, we bounce out and look at the patient. Sometimes the captain does that, or I do that, or the deputy director does that. We get someone to get eyes on the patient.
I think it would help justify the 4th unit.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I can pull that down.
More questions?
I'm good.
All right, Sam, it used to be that most of my calls, it's just the way it kind of played out, were about convenience centers and trash.
Yes, ma'am.
And now, over the last 6 months or so, it's gone to public safety. And I know that we've all talked amongst ourselves, as has Mr. Ayers, who's absent today. As you know, I live in the western end of the county, so peddler is kind of our thing. And the people down there are very fond of peddler, as you well know. And we already know that we live in a part of the county that's difficult to access. But we accept that. We know it's a lot of things that we don't get. But we would like to believe that if something bad happens to us or a family member, that we can see public safety. Having said that, I know if something happens to my husband, he just breaks a leg and we'll throw him in the truck and get him up here to Amherst. We accept that part. But there's been a growing concern, and I will just tell you, anger over the fact that a lot of times equipment's not at peddler. That they come in, they take it to Manellison, and there it sits until something happens down that way. We could be okay with it coming to Amherst that wouldn't hurt nearly as bad. But the idea that it leaves there and goes to Manellis and causes a lot of folks heartburn. So I've done some research and people have called me and I've talked to them. And I'm the first to say, board members, and saying, I don't know your job. You know, you want to ask me about other things I might know, but I depend on you and Mr. Martin and Mr. Ayers, you know, to answer my questions. So I was told that back in, I can't remember the year now, but it was a current board member at the time, and Gary Rooks signed an MOU when we first started going into paid staff. And then part of that MOU, did you ever find that?
Yes, ma'am, I sent it to you.
Anyway, was that when the equipment left Peddler, it would come to Amherst. And it would go back and forth like that, which is fine. And I know, and I don't expect the equipment to sit at Peddler all the time. That doesn't make sense, and I understand that. But help me explain to the folks down there, what is a reasonable alternative and what do we need to do so that we can ensure that the response times down there are, and they probably won't be equal to what they are in Amherst or Madison Heights, and I understand that. But help me understand what we can do as a compromise that gives us something reasonable.
Well, I think the term you're talking about was 17 years ago. A lot's changed since then. People are living longer. The response time is somewhat longer. It could be typically, we go by what was called standards of coverage, and that's from the Virginia Office.
Say that, what's that term again?
Standards of coverage.
Okay.
And that's what we'll get graded on when we do our state inspection on November the 5th. I have to pull all these calls together. Dean has to look at them. We look at that. And we try really hard to be anywhere in the county in 14 or 15 minutes, 70% of the time. That's what we're shooting for. We do very well in this county. I know about the anger. The thing that I'm disappointed in is not one person has been willing to sit down at the table and talk to me about it from that community. And those are the very people that got me into this business. But I'm working on that, and I'm open to their concerns. I share some of the same concerns. I'm doing the best with what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I've left the office and gone on calls by myself when other volunteers in the Peddler community drove right by my truck. Okay, it takes a team to do this. Right. And not everybody is always open to teamwork, and I understand why it happens. I had a hard choice to make, and I made it on the 24th of February. I made sure that our medical director was open to it, and she knew about it. She didn't give me permission. I already made the decision. There's been a lot of talk about that. I know about it. People talk to me about these things. I wish the right people would talk to me about it, because I think we could come to compromise. There's not one term or one time in our Emergency Services Council meeting, which is again tonight, that this topic's ever come up. So that's what truck would solve it. Right now, the truck is going to leave. If you leave it there, it's going to come to Amherst or Manellis anyway. It's just going to be late for the call. We had a 26-minute response time from the QMI in Madison Heights when the truck was left at 26 minutes. People were furious about that. They were. And that wasn't, I mean, I had been watching it for some time and watching those call times escalate. And those are the very things that Dean and I are going to have to explain. Those long response time when the truck is left to Peddler. I could get along with leaving my Amherst. I'm not against that. We could do something. 90% of the time before I even came to work here, it was leaving Peddler and coming to Amherst for training or other things anyway, running calls. We also covered Nelson County and the city of Lynchburg with these trucks. We covered the city of Lynchburg today for a call. We went there and we got disregarded. They got bombed. We covered a lot of Nelson County calls in the Rosen area and also in Gladstone. I can't beat that. I have to have mutual aid agreements required by law. It worries me sometimes because some days I don't feel like I don't get the same return from them. But I am doing the very best I can with the equipment that I have.
Well, first, let me just assure you in public that there is absolutely no lack of support for you. And I mean you personally.
Yes, ma'am. And I know that. I appreciate
it. But when people ask me something, the only thing I can do is ask you.
Yeah. I would be glad to speak with those people, any people, and I know that you guys get that heat put on you and you can transfer it to me. I'll sit down with them. I need a fourth truck. Ms. Moore's helped me figure out, looking at that, that's going to help me figure that out and justify that a little bit more. I really want, my plan is to be fully staffed
use the power shift and open that power shift.
That was my question, I wrote it down, power shift.
Yep, so power shift is
Are we
basically,
using the power shift?
we don't
A
have,
power
I
shift?
don't have enough people now, but the power shift will fill the Ford truck up part of the time. You know, on our busiest days is when I'm gonna have the power shift in. That would be the less acute calls. The call that takes a paramedic away from someone that has a heart attack, you're not gonna get that paramedic because he's taking care of someone that fell in a tornado. So that power shift, once we get fully staffed, we'll be able to do that power shift. I'd like to have it in the Manelson area or at Station 3. We do have some work to do there, but it's only gonna be for 12 hours. I can, we can look at the start time and the finish time. The guys and girls have gotten used to overtime. And as we get filled, I've cautioned them, be careful of that change in your standard of living because the overtime is gonna go away. That was one of the things that Dean and Stacy and Linda talked to me about. I've got to decrease the overtime. So we're gonna do that by having the right people. They're gonna wanna work this power shift. It may be the answer, but my estimation is that once the power shift gets busy, I'm gonna be asking you for the Ford truck.
But to have the power shift, you need 2 more people?
Power shift, I would need 4 more people.
I mean,
4.
4 more people. All right, my next question,
Actually, 4 more people would give me the 4th crew. I can do the power shift once I get fully staffed. I can do that. Once I get fully staffed, but it's not gonna be a 24/7 operation. It's gonna be from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., whenever the busiest times are. If I had more than 2 people, I could rotate those people like our dispatch schedule and have that coverage with that Ford truck.
all right, using the younger people, the 18 pluses, are we sacrificing, well, obviously we're sacrificing training levels for head count.
It would be 19 years old. It would make us more competitive with the other localities. You're giving something up. You're not getting someone with 5 years driving experience. You're getting 3 years in an ambulance. 3 years driving experience versus the 5 years.
Can I chime in right there? There's some localities not too far away from here that already have those. 19 years old, you can go and you can become an EMT. Right?
Yes, sir. Cameron County is an example.
Cameron County, what about Albemarle? Albemarle might be one as well. But anyway, they're already doing it.
Yes, sir. It's not, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just trying to steal the good stuff and catch up.
Yeah. Okay, I was just making sure. Go ahead, Clyde.
Okay, I got 2 more questions and I'll be quiet. So I have concerns about how long we've had these vacancies and why they haven't been filled, thing 1.
Okay.
Thing 2, retention.
Sure.
You know,
So vacancy wise, the money came available in July. It takes time to hire people. No one's really moving that much during COVID. They're planted, watching what's going on. The people we've hired are amazing. I won't hire just anybody to come into your house at 2 a.m. I've had to pass on some people. Once we did the background check and or we do the polygraph, there are what I thought were good candidates that were troubling to me. That we did not accept. And I'm not just making that decision. We do a background check and we learn things. And some people, I wish we would have given a chance to, that went on and did well. But the majority of them had something in their past that they hadn't told us about. And I've only had 1 or 2 paramedic applicants. Lynchburg Fire Department's losing 10. They're scrambling to make them the way we are. This is not just us, this is nationwide. And statewide. It really is. I think the paramedics of the future are going to command a much higher salary, and we're not the only one. There's a large healthcare organization in our area that is missing 70 people that do the work that I do. So comparatively, I think during a pandemic and unprecedented times, we've done very well to attract the people that we have. I've got an awesome paramedic that's coming in from the helicopter to enter our program and get back into the VRS and service community, and he wants to work here. That's just one example. There's 2 other people like him walking through the door.
And there's no doubt in my mind that you're hiring the best you possibly can.
And the
I
other
just want to make sure that you don't let perfection get in the way
No,
of
I'm not after perfection.
getting good people in.
I'm all about second chances. I'm all about growing people. But there are some people that I would just, there's some people that have interviewed more than one time, not to go too deep in it, that just, they're smart, intelligent people that they just don't get what we're doing. And I don't know a way to train them to do it. And I've looked at every avenue I can. Attrition, you want me to talk about that? I'll be glad to. My leadership style is a little bit different. I do hold people accountable, but I balance race with accountability. And that's been hard. The majority of people that left, well, most of them They wanted a better schedule. They wanted to work that 12-hour schedule. They didn't want any nights or weekends, or some of them started their own businesses. I couldn't compete with that. But that, you know, not to get too deep in the weeds on that, yeah.
Sam, you've answered all the questions I've got, but I feel like I called the meeting. Hold your time. Board members, any other questions?
I have an additional question.
I know Mr. Moore has one.
Volunteers running calls.
Yep.
I feel like I've seen the Nelson truck more frequently, Green and Mining. I don't know if that's staff running that.
No, ma'am, that's us. We spread out the vehicles, so we're rotating trucks every other month. So instead of just using the red trucks all the time, I asked the volunteer rescue captains to pick all their truck every other month, so we could spread out the mileage. Their trucks were sitting and not being used and becoming disrepaired. I needed to save miles on our trucks, so we spread it out. So they're using the Nelson truck right now. You're seeing that. Medic 1 is down in, it's getting fixed again. It's got the most miles on it, but it's getting repaired. And once it comes back in, the approved for Medic 1 will be in the red truck again. We're doing the same thing in Amherst Rescue Squad.
So I think in order to support your calls for a fourth medic unit, we need to figure out how many calls volunteers are going to do.
Less than 1%.
And I don't know what 1% is.
Less than 1% of where we're 3,000 calls a day. We will probably run 3,500 calls, could be close to, depends on how the next few months are. And what happens with the pandemic and how busy we get with respiratory disease, winter's really cold, and all the flus and all that fun stuff.
Chair, I don't have a question, but you made a comment earlier, and it stuck with me that no one had reached out to you, not even in the Emergency Services Council meeting or anything. And to me, it's almost as if this conversation shouldn't have been happening here. It should have been happening there. And I'd almost like to see this conversation happen there before we do anything. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'd rather see it there, and then we can bring it back for some more discussion. I think it is a good idea to look at the recruitment age to see. There's a lot of young people that have a lot of energy, and they're looking for something. The people that are volunteering now, you might be on the fire side, but would love to get into being an EMT. I know you're going to start them off at EMTBs or whatever they are, you know, on the lower end, but I know people right now that would love to have an opportunity to do that. And that's something maybe you should seriously consider. You know.
Well, we have Captain Joseph Greer teaching at the high school, and I really want those high school kids to get their EMT and get a job, and for us to have that success story. We haven't had it yet, but taking this age to 19 will give us that opportunity.
And then the other thing is, it hadn't been that long since we upped the salaries, you know, and it's almost as if we're pushing a little too quick on that. I think that is going to bring people on board if they look and see what the salaries are in the region and say, well, you know, this is a pretty good deal here. I think we will make inroads there. But anyway, that was just my 2 comments. I've already heard enough.
Mr. Barlow, I ask you this question, because you're on the Public Safety Council, right?
No, ma'am, I'm head to resign.
Jimmy is.
Jimmy is.
Mm-hmm.
So
can, since I can look at you and ask you this question, at the next at the next meeting, can you mention our concerns to them and see?
yes, ma'am, I will bring them up tonight.
And tell them that the board would like to hear.
And I will specifically, I've been in touch with the Pembroke Fire Chief, and I'm hoping he'll be there tonight. But I have no problem bringing this up on the floor and discussing your concerns about the Pembroke list.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to make a point, those items, all of these items are operational. And so this is just a discussion for the board. We haven't proposed a motion. We intend to put these into place, except for those that take money. If they take money, we've got to come back to the board. But before we implement anything, they've got to go to the Emergency Services Council so that they can discuss them, they can be aware of them, they can weigh in on them. And then for instance, the age restriction, we can remove that on our own. We don't need board action to do that. We intend to do that subject to whatever concerns are raised by the Emergency Services Council and so forth. We'll do the same thing with all of these, except those that take money. And the intention is actually to, with the ESC's input, choose those, for instance, the annual bonuses. All right, if we're going to go with that, then we would have to cost that out and we would come back and propose that in the budget cycle as an increase, probably through the supplemental budget, because that would be a personnel matter. And so you would see the dollar amount and what's involved, and you all would address it that way.
But I mean, once we're fully staffed, you're never gonna be perfect. I know that. You just can't. If you might get 6 calls at one time, you can't have enough ambulances on it. You really can't. I mean, you could have 100 of them. You never know what's gonna happen. You're not gonna have enough people all the time. And I know we fail at that sometimes, but all other agencies do too. But I think we need to get fully staffed and then take a look and see how we're doing at that point in time. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. That's been my focus. I've spent a lot of time working on bringing the full-time people through the door and balancing that with operations. It's fun some days, but it's very rewarding. We get to do some of what I consider the noblest work out there in helping other people.
And there is nobody on this board that is into micromanaging. This is a different kind of board than what we've seen in the past. But when it comes to, to things like this, there's no sense in asking Mr. Rogers, because you're the guy with the answers.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys being willing to talk about it and having the time to do it.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Bryan.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, Mr. Martin.
So, I'd just like to talk about the logistics a little bit. I do encourage you to bring that up to the Emergency Service Council tonight. But my understanding is that calls on the western part of the county are about 3.8% of the total call volume. Is that correct? Okay. Then the next volume is here in Amherst, and then it moves on to Amherst Heights. So I think our staff should be commended for trying to make the most out of what resources they have. I started my career in Butler, volunteer career in 1995. I was a cardiac technician up there. I was an assistant captain of the rescue squad at Butler. Quite frankly, the volunteer rescue squads have not been holding up that part of the bar.
I don't argue that point at all.
Yeah, I'm just making a point. So, so, Mr. Bryan, I think you should be commended for trying to deal with the call volume and moving the units around. So I can understand that people are upset about it. But in turn, the people in Mass Heights and Amherst are going to be upset if the unit doesn't show up too. So either we need to put forth resources, or we're just going to have to accept some things. The age reduction, that's something I had proposed a while back. I'm glad you're looking at that. My only concern I have 2 concerns. One, at least, and we're not making I don't know if I'm getting into uncharted waters or not, but I do not think a 19-year-old should be driving a fireman. They won't be driving one at Amherst Fire Department.
Agreed.
I can tell you that.
Agreed.
As far as a medic unit, it's probably a little bit different. My other concern with that is that we may lose volunteers on the fire side. We have several emergency medical technicians at the fire department. Maintain my certification. We have paramedics. We have advanced EMTs. And the reason being is because at least our fire departments will first respond when there's unemployment in the area. We hear AEDs and some basic supplies for equipment on our engines. But we're willing to do that. But if we lose volunteers to the county because they can't volunteer and work in the same county, that may be an issue with the volunteer side. So that's definitely something we need to be cognizant of. Fourth medic unit, Mr. Rogers, if you would remember, back when we were discussing the budget, I asked you, Mr. Bryan, do we have enough staff for fourth medic unit? And the answer at that time was, yes, we do. Obviously, it looks like no, we don't. You sat there, Mr. Bryant was in the back. I turned and talked and the answer was yes. I'd kind of like to know what's changed. Was that based on using part-time staff? What was that?
As I understand it, it's if we were fully manned, I mean, we had the personnel slots that we needed, and if we were fully manned and we went to these power shifts, we'd be able to staff that.
Partially with the two people that would be the beginning of the power shift, and then other people that would be able to fill in for overtime.
So it would, we could make it
That's
do.
the start, that's a 12-hour
Okay,
job.
so making do, I get that. I think there was several good requests for information, one from Ms. Moore on, how many times all the units are out. That'd be a good thing. I think Mr. Pugh said, okay, let's get up fully staffed and see how this works. My thought long-term is power shifts and part-time is not going to work.
It's hard on people.
Obviously, I'm the chief of Amherst Fire Department. I'm listening to the radio all the time. I go out and first respond when EMS calls when needed. So I'm a little bit closer to this. Okay? I'm not making any decisions, Mr. Locke. I'm just talking. Okay? So, it is very frequent that all units are out. I think the other thing is that the crew down south at my house, they run constantly. There are no breaks for their kids. It's back to back. Quick turnaround at the hospital. They're gone again. That wears on people tremendously. It wears on people to go back to back. The things that our EMS staff or sheriff staff or fire staff have to deal with. You're going from dealing with people in their worst time of need, and you're doing that consistently throughout the day. The accidents like happened on 130 last night, that's going to wear on you. We seriously need to look at not getting by anymore, but staffing what we need to provide quality EMS service. Not that we're not providing quality service now. What does it take? And that's what I've been asking since I've been on board. What does it take? And what is it going to cost us to have that for? So that's the information I want. And as a board, we're going to have to figure out. So we owe that to our citizens.
And Ms. Martin, I completely agree with everything that you said. But when you say that people in the western end of the county just have to accept it, no, they don't have, and they shouldn't have to accept it. Now, we all know that when you live in an extremely rural part of the county, that you don't have all the conveniences you do if you lived in Madison Heights or you lived in Amherst. But these people pay taxes, they work their jobs, they do the best thing that they can, and I think that they should be able to raise their expectations a little bit. And like I said, it's a compromise. I will give it to you. We will never have response times, nor will we ever have the equipment down there that we have here. All I'm asking for is to recognize that there's a need and there's some pain down there, and let's work together to help fix it.
Did I say they had to accept it? I guess the point is that, whether the unit is there or not, it's more than likely the other 97%, 96% of the time, it's not going to be there. Right? It's going to be on the road coming to a call in this area. So, either it's going back and forth, such as what's sit there for a half hour to an hour, or it's not. I'm not getting into the logistics of it. That's for you guys to figure out, Chief Brian and Mr. Rogers. We do have an obligation to provide some service up there. I'm not saying we don't. I'm saying, tell us what resources you need to make that happen.
And I think that we're all saying, we're all pulling in the same direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant.
Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on to new business. Oh, we did that one. Benefits consultant.
In July, the county released a request for proposal seeking benefits administration and consulting services. We had 7 benefit consulting firms respond, and the top 3 firms were with the highest scoring proposals were interviewed. We did a go-to-meeting interview this year because of COVID, so that was a little bit different for us. And we released a set of questions the afternoon before that we expected those vendors to answer at those meetings the next day. So it's a little bit of a stress interview for them, as we say in HR. The evaluation committee, which was made up of the county administrator, finance director, and myself, unanimously recommend contracting with Pierce Group Benefits. What helped them stand out was their answers to those questions, because one of the questions was, we don't have as much money budgeted as the proposals that came back. All of them came back higher than what was budgeted. And how could they help us provide the services we needed within that budget? And they were able to give us 3 excellent ways in which we could cut costs. And they had stayed late that evening. They were the first proposal to present the next morning, and they had stayed that late that evening in order to brainstorm and answer that particular question for us, and that really made them stand out. They also have experience with self-insurance tools, and they were the only company that could guarantee us that they could get our electric onboarding in place by the CARES Act deadline, which is December 3rd. All of those things are why we are recommending them today. I have provided you with their RFP response so that you can learn more about their company. And we are asking for approval of the contract documents today.
Board members, any questions?
I have a question. So this is new. This is a new thing that we're doing.
Yes.
And we're required, we have to contract someone out to help, because it says the rigorous standards, I guess, set forth by the law, right?
Right, and that's COBRA administration in particular has very tight deadlines. That's one piece of what they'll be doing. And also, when we have mid-year qualifying events, when employees want to make changes to their health insurance in the middle of the year, we have to make sure that we meet those requirements. In addition to those services, they will also help us with the vendors. And if we have problems, they will help us negotiate those and address any concerns we have with these benefits.
So are these new regulations or new federal requirements?
No, sir, we've had a consultant for the last 2 years. We're changing consultants.
So this
is not a new service.
Okay, how about the amount of money that the consultant is charging? Is there a difference in the amount? I mean, we've already been budgeting for a certain amount every year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, in a sense, you approve supplemental budgets each year to get that consultant, to get us through the selection process, to get our benefits. And then we extended him to help administer those benefits. And there's a level of dissatisfaction with that consultant, and we want a better one. And so we went out for bid, and this is who we think can do a better job.
Yeah, because I was just looking at, we're gonna have to address this going forward. This year, we were able to, the CARES Act funding, provide $11,000 of CARES Act funding. Next year, CARES Act funding, unless there's another round of something, we will not have that.
That's correct. This is a 1-year contract, so this will be part of the annual budget process that you'll look at.
Mm-hmm.
And so this will come back to you, and we will have paid you to reevaluate but yeah, we're just getting here through the end of the budget year.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, ma'am. All right, board members, we need a motion.
I move that the board approve the benefits consultant service contract, business associate agreement, and enrollment system client service contract with Pierce Group Benefits as presented, and direct the county administrator to sign the documents.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next is the flat grant. Mr. Bryant.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, this is both complicated and simple. And I'll start with the picture. I'll put a picture on your screen for you to look at. Many of you are probably familiar with the Balcony Falls portion of the James River. Generally, people will start in the Rockbridge County portion near Glasgow. A lot of people enjoy floating from Glasgow into Amherst County, crossing through the Blue Ridge. And the unfortunate part of all that is there's no real good place to take out. Public safety crews are often up there helping rescue people and dealing with situations. And so I brought a motley crew with us today. I have Bill Tanger, who's with the Friends of the River of Virginia, Philip Galatullo with Central Virginia Planning District Commission, and Rob Campbell with the James River Association are all going to help me with this. I'm going to summarize first. What they are seeking is what's called a FLAP. It's a Federal Lands Access Program, and this is administered through the Federal Highway Administration. It provides funding to develop safe and adequate transportation access to and through federal lands for visitors, recreationalists, and resource use. In this case, the federal land being accessed is the U.S. Forest Service, since the project falls within the George Washington National Forest. What's complicated about this is the Friends of the River have had to work with lots of bureaucratic agencies. They've worked with, and are still working with, the Virginia Department of Transportation to seek an entrance permit, the United States Forest Service, and CSX, the railroad. What's important about this application is that this application is not seeking construction funds. It's requesting funds for the development of construction plans. It's important. Receiving planning funds from FLAP does not require a commitment to construct. So what we're asking for is an 80-20 match to construct or to plan for construction plans for ultimately a crossing that goes under the CSX railroad, a safe crossing, a 7-foot diameter pipe that would go in. There would be stairs from the James River to the pipe to go under the railroad tracks. So we would reduce the conflict points on the CSX railroad. It would be a trail that would be built from that point to a parking lot that has been designed by Mr. Tanger and his folks and is in your packet. The total ask of the application will be approximately $125,000, which will include engineering costs paid to a consultant, as well as administrative costs borne to Amherst County and CVPDC. The project would include a new entrance driveway off of US 501, Route 130, and a new 25-space parking lot. A trail down to the river, the pedestrian tunnel 7 feet in diameter under the CSX railroad tracks, and steps leading to the river. Developing construction plans for the proposed project will help determine the viability of the project moving forward. And so that's important as well. What we're trying to understand is the viability of this project. And we need those plans to do so. Friends of the River has spent a total of $31,000. I understand Mr. Tanger actually has spent more, but that's the receipts that were provided to us on design and engineering costs for construction plans of the new entrance driveway. Again, the Central Virginia Planning District Commission is offering to submit the application and supporting documentation on Amherst County's behalf. This is a required 80-20 match through the nonprofit entity of Friends of the River of Virginia, and FORVA has committed the 20% required match up to an amount of $150,000. FORVA has to date raised $100,000 for this project. The recommended motion is that the board authorize the county administrator to apply for the grant funds from the Federal Lands Access Program for preliminary engineering of the Balcony Falls takeout project. And Madam Chair, if you may, Mr. Tanger is here. I think he would like to add more.
Yeah, thank you. Sir, come forward and give us your name, please, and your affiliation.
Mr. Old guy. Marks are wearing out. But anyway, see, I've been in the projects 15 years. I used to be younger. But anyway, yes, first of all, I represent Friends of the Rivers of Virginia. I'm the chairperson. We represent over 24 groups in the state, mostly all having to do with rivers, river conservation, boaters, fishermen, all kinds of activities on the rivers. And I would say perspective-wise, this particular project for boating recreation in Virginia is the #1 project in the whole state as far as importance, as far as the number of people who will use it, as far as the scenic values and many other things. You can imagine the difficulties to put VDOT, the Forest Service, and CSX Railroad in the same room. Really gets contentious. But we have managed to get to the point where we have letters of support from all three of them, this project. Hope you're hearing me. Okay, anyway, so how does it benefit Amherst County? So first of all, there used to be several outfitters who operated in that section of the river, Balcony Falls. They had one outfitter out of Lynchburg, and one that outfitter was actually there in Glasgow. And they all had to basically close down a big part of their operation. One in Lynchburg went completely out of business because most of their business was tubing. They would tube down the river and then take out across the railroad tracks down there. The other one that was in Glasgow has moved to Buchanan. The reason I mention these businesses is the potential is there to grow that area. It's not a huge area. As you know, the town of Snowden used to have a post office. People used to take out across the railroad tracks. There was a little country store and post office there. And that's long gone. So, and that's mainly because of the railroad issues. You know, the railroad does not like people crossing those tracks. Anyway, this project would create a tremendous increase in the activity down there for that section and taking out in Amherst County. Our proposal is in front of you there. And it would also reduce safety issues of people crossing the highway and crossing the railroad tracks and so forth. And it would aid in rescue for the emergency management services. This proposal doesn't require any money from the county at this point in time. We're just seeking approval because the FLAP program requires a governmental entity, a county usually, wherever the county the project is in, to at least take some nominal responsibility or agreement to proceed with it. We have spent more than we spent about $50,000 in engineering and landscape planning. So, I think it's a benefit to everybody. We haven't found anybody opposed to it, quite frankly, and I hope you'll support it.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
I don't have any questions per se, but I'm pretty familiar with that area. And I know that law enforcement and the park services, if you cross that railroad tracks and they're somewhere in the area, you will get a ticket immediately. It used to be, and I see it here, existing picnic area. You could walk down the hill down to a rock, and
Exactly.
but if they catch you, you know, they'll write you a ticket and give you a hard time. It would be great to have access elsewhere because the water gets so slack. About the time you take out of the picnic area, it gets so slack from there all the way down to the boat landing, and it really doesn't make for a good paddle. And if you're on inner tube, it's just miserable.
It's all right.
And so, I mean, it would be great to be able to have some additional access to the river up there. And the spot has gotten more, it's more heavily used than it used to be. I guess the internet has helped that and a lot of Liberty students and whoever, but those parking lots are full quite often on the weekends, and it certainly would be nice to have additional parking and people to use that part of the river. What a beautiful, I mean, one of the most beautiful places you could be at.
It's a wilderness area, and it is gorgeous. But I may just add this one comment. I spoke before a legislative committee in Richmond about this issue, and they passed a resolution in support of it and so forth. And I introduced myself as belonging to one of the largest groups of lawbreakers in the United States. Because we crossed the railroad tracks. And this dais had about 15, 20 people on it. And one of the legislators thought about it a second. He leaned forward and said, I think I belong to that group of lawbreakers. So Yeah, there's a need for it, and everybody agrees. So,
Thank you.
any questions? Just give me a shout. Thank you.
Ms. Bryant, do you have anything else? I have a question, well, for Ms. Bryant. Because I'm a visual learner. So you're floating down the river, you get out, and then with this plan, there's steps that you go up, and then you go through a tunnel?
Correct.
Which keeps you from breaking the law,
Correct.
and then you go up to a parking lot, so you don't have to cross the road.
You won't cross the railroad, and you enter the parking lot, you will not cross the road or the railroad, correct?
So are you pulling your canoe behind you going up those steps into that
Yes.
tunnel? That tunnel? You are?
Yes. I mean, that's pretty, I mean, a lot of people do, a lot of the access to the river in different areas, you have to do that. Kayaks aren't that heavy, you got someone with you, you can do it, but you gotta have good legs. Yeah, you gotta have good legs.
What are you saying, Mr. Wheeler?
I'm saying that, I don't have very good legs.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, board members, pleasure. We're not putting forward any money, we're acting as a fiduciary, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. This is just to acquire the plans, but of course, the intention is that the plans be built, that we create another access point in the river, and that because this is in Amherst County, I would expect that these groups are going to look to someone to maintain this place. And we would be adding this to our collection of river access locations.
Well, some of this may be, I don't know, some of it may be on federal land as well. And, you know, this could also be something where you have like the Appalachian Trail is largely maintained by volunteers. So, you know, I'm sure I see Mr. Campbell here, they have a group, I'm sure, that would be interested in your group as well to help maintain these areas.
Mr. Campbell, could you come forward,
Very
please?
quickly, yes, sir, and that's.
So if you can bring us some comfort about that you're gonna weed eat and kind of help us keep it up.
As Mr. Tanger alluded to, this site has been sought after for so long by so many. To see something like this come through, we would ensure that it would be maintained by one group or another. We could even come up with a specific friends group for this particular spot. We could even fundraise in the future. And Friends of Virginia Rivers, as you can see, can bring some considerable resources to the table with lots of people. So I don't think their investment ends when the project goes into the ground. And I certainly know that ours does either. So, and it's just really getting started. Because it's a way for us to get people back in touch with one of our best special parts in the whole county. So this is a great way to get the study started, and moving forward, I think that we can find some clever fundraising strategies to get the project there, but also to maintain it too.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, board members, this absolutely goes in line with our mission and our vision and our values and our goals that we just took so long yesterday to work on. Square in the middle of it.
Madam Chair, I fully support this. I would encourage you to maintain communication with the railroad, maintain communication with the railroad. Because I think getting under that is going to be a key hurdle for you. Got some experience dealing with them with some tunnels coming on the railroad in Lynchburg and what's involved with that. I doubt they're going to let you shut the line down. You know, who's going to own that tunnel is going to be a key piece, and who's going to have to maintain that. We need to look into that before we go forward, but I have no problem moving forward with the authorizing county administrator to proceed.
Is that a motion?
Yep, I move the board authorize the county administrator to apply for grant funds from the Federal Lands Access Program for preliminary computer-weighted engineering of Balcony Falls Takeaway.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. County Administrator's report.
Yes, ma'am, there's several items. The first one is with regard to the annual Virginia Association of Counties meeting. It is scheduled for the 9th through the 11th of November. It will be a virtual meeting this year. At this meeting, in addition to other business related to VACO, they always adopt their legislative agenda, to which they send lobbyists to Richmond to deal with that agenda. They ask for who will be representing the county at that meeting. Traditionally, I go to the meeting and you all give me your proxy, but I thought this year, because it's a virtual meeting, one of you all could attend. There's 2 1-hour meetings on Monday, 3 1-hour meetings on Tuesday, and a 1-hour business meeting on Wednesday. And so that is where I would propose one of your member, at the very least, if not attending the rest, would represent the county in casting our votes. Unless, of course, you want me to do that for you. I don't have a draft of their legislative agenda at this time. They haven't published that yet.
Yeah, for the last couple of years, and it really it's interesting, and it's eye-opening to see what other counties are doing.
Is that you volunteering?
No, that is not me volunteering.
Does the same person have to attend all the virtual meetings?
No. All they really have to do is attend the business meeting, but the rest, I mean, it's a $50 fee, which is nothing. I mean, it's normally in the hundreds of dollars. You can attend the other presentations, which are about broadband, workforce development, all of the issues that we're dealing with in our county come up, solar, all kinds of things. But then at the business meeting, yes, that would be the one required.
Does anybody want to attend?
I'm not interested.
On that Monday, I'm booked all, like half a day, so I don't know if I can attend all of them.
You do the VML meetings, don't you, Smart?
I
I'll do it.
You will?
I can't say I'll do all 3 days all day long, but
You only need to be at the one meeting.
yes, sign me
One
up
day.
and I will
Yes, ma'am.
do that.
All
And
right,
but you're gonna also be there, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go sit through all of it, because I learn a lot.
well, I'll make a motion. I move that Claudia Tucker serves as the Amherst County voting representative to the annual VACO meeting.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. The next item is just your quarterly update on upcoming vacancies. There is 1 seat for District 4 on the Parks and Recreation Board. So we will be, in the appropriate time, we'll advertise for that, but you are all encouraged to find your own nominees that you think would be capable and productive in that role.
Ms. Alcott could be reappointed.
Of course. But at this point, it's really even too early for her to say that she's interested in it, but she will be approached to see if she wants to be reappointed. The next item is with regard to our regularly scheduled 1st November meeting. That's the 3rd of November. The governor has declared that to be a holiday. That's voting day this year. And so we need to move our meeting to to any day, but either Monday the 2nd or Wednesday the 4th.
How do y'all feel about a Monday?
I'm not available on Monday, but I'm available on the 4th.
And that's the first meeting. Yeah, I mean, does the 4th work for everybody?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I think there's consensus for the 4th, Mr. Rogers.
And we will keep it at 3 p.m. now?
Yes.
Just as a side note, the Amherst County Service Authority meets on the 2nd, so Mr. Hopkins, I see you there.
Yeah, I'd have to get a hold of Mr. Burrow and Mr. Woods to make sure they can do the same thing.
All right, just
I
keep
haven't
us in the
finished
loop, whatever happens.
Okay, let's plan on 1:30 on the 4th, and I'll let y'all know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last item is I seek the board's adoption of a resolution to oppose a change to the state recordation taxes. The legislature has changed the allocation of that money so that no longer do localities get a share of it. That will cost Amherst County $60,000 in recurring revenue. So the proposed resolution expresses the board's opposition to that change.
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt resolution 2020-0025-R as presented.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Resolution passes. County Attorney.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention one small matter that had come up with regard to the bonds. Thank you very much for coming to a clear resolution on that earlier matter. That is certainly going to be helpful. The other matter I wanted to bring up was due to the strange arrangement, which is good, I think, for everybody that we have, where we actually share the animal shelter with the Humane Society. We're going to have to issue the bonds taxable rather than non-taxable, but given that taxable bonds are also incredibly cheap at this point, we're going to still save about $450,000. It's just that we had thought previously that we might save $600,000. $450 is still good, and it means that we're also going to save the Humane Society a third of that, because they actually pay a third of the debt service. So it's actually apparently a very good thing for everybody, and the Humane Society is pretty tickled.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. You've got the liaison and committee reports. If you don't have any questions, we'll move on to departmental reports.
Thank you. Greetings again. So, about 6 months ago, the board made the decision at Mr. Rogers' request to extend the landfill hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. This was done primarily when we took the brush containers out of 2 of the convenience sites at Coolwell and 60 East. After 6 months of evaluating the data, it's not turning out to make financial sense for the county. In the agenda item, we've noted that 83% of the landfill traffic on Saturdays is in the morning, 17% is in the afternoon. Boiled down, that's 6 people individually bringing trash, and it costs approximately $28 in salaries and benefits for our staff to maintain those 6 individuals. When I'm requesting, and I can answer any questions you have, that we return the Saturday hours back to 8.
Board members?
Just the previous 6 months?
Yes, ma'am, it's running 6 months. This has been since April of this year.
So you got the increase in traffic from COVID factored in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, do people, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, maybe you do people clean up more brush in the fall and winter versus the spring and summer?
Perhaps, but I think Saturday morning is more of a ritual than Saturday afternoon. It's more of a social hour where, they come on Saturday mornings no matter what. They're brushers who bags of trash. I've noted it seems to be the same people. They come at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. They just don't come in the afternoons like we had potentially anticipated, which is why it's just not financially sound to continue this. It also includes additional comp time for our staff, which 37.5 hours in a 48-hour landfill schedule is not conducive to reducing comp time.
Any other questions? While I've got you here, and this is a little bit off topic, but still about hours. I believe it was December that we were going to revisit Dodds Ford or the convenience center being open on Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes,
We said we'd give it 6 months. Was that December? Is that December? Or do you know?
That would be January 1, would be 6 months.
Okay. So board members, what's your pleasure on this landfill Saturday hours?
So along that lines, Madam Chair, so this staff could be reallocated to one of the convenience centers.
No, sir, these are landfill operators. So this is a scale house attendant and a landfill operator, both of which make 2 to 3 times as more than a site attendant and our full-time employees. Our site attendants are part-time employees.
So funding could be
It could be, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not, the information for the sites hasn't changed. The tonnage is still not warranted based on the criteria and the data given.
Okay, I'm not talking about keeping the actual landfill open, I'm just saying for the convenience of our citizens, we could reallocate that funding to additional days for convenience centers.
If the board found value in that, Mr. Martin, yes, sir.
And then I think we'll discuss that on January 1, is it?
We will. We will. But right now, what's before us is a landfill in the Saturday hours.
I think Mr. Pugh was one of the ones that requested this. Do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I mean, the data is what the data is, right? You know, that's how you made your decision, and if that's, then I'm fine with that. I just want people to have the ability to, you know, since we were closing I believe one of the reasons we opened it on Saturdays is we closed the
brush. This was a trade-off, this was a concession.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna take away your brush containers, we're gonna open the landfill for longer hours so that you can have time to get your brush to the landfill.
And then also, when we, it also would help, the closure of the one down on Gotts Mill Road. We'd closed that one, I think previous to you getting here, and they did not have an ability to go anywhere, so we said, let's extend those hours as well. But I'm fine with lowering the hours back to till noon.
Gonna make a motion?
Well, you're more than welcome to.
Oh, come on.
Madam Chair, move that the board return Saturday operating hours at the landfill from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Motion on the floor by Ms. Moore, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
While I got you here, as far as credit card payments at the landfill, or where are we at in that situation?
We accept credit cards now at the landfill.
Okay, because I know I've gotten some complaints about that. If you didn't have cash, you weren't able to pay, so we are now able to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have it here, so where is I know last meeting, you said you approved funding for Public Works to go and fix the trail.
You did.
Where are we at with that?
We've ordered the trailer to take our unit from the landfill to the trail yesterday. We did have to wait 10 business days for state procurement guidelines to make sure everybody was able to bid on the trailer we had purchased. We've now ordered it. It should arrive by Friday. We should be on the trail by next week.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you. Are you gonna be able to do the CARES update without Ms. Wilkes?
Well, not very well.
That's what
The report is there for your information. It simply shows the status of the items, how much we've spent in each of the projects, and how much is left to be spent in each of those categories. We continue to move forward with all of them. I can tell you that there is a bill moving through Congress to extend the deadline, and discussions to extend the deadline from 30 December to the 30 December of next year. That would have been nice to know 3 or 4 months ago, because probably by the time they pass such a bill, we'll have the money spent. But that's okay, because the salary switch still leaves us lots of more funding to work with.
I've got a question regarding that. How about the Firefly? Is that the name of the company?
Yes, sir.
What's the progress on that, and where are they in that situation?
They continue to move forward with their planning, with their contacts with AEP to get on the poles that they need to. Their focus is on the underground portions, because that's going to take the longest to get that done first. I just signed the contract itself, I think yesterday, as we bounced it backward, but that did not slow down their planning and their efforts. My understanding is that they're gonna be on the ground working next week.
Well, it would give them extra time, not that we want to give them extra time, but technically it would give them extra time if they didn't finish it by December 30th.
Exactly, we could relax a little bit.
I still have a hard time believing they're gonna, we'll see how it progresses.
It would be nice to give everybody some extra time to do the job right, rather than do the job fast.
But our agreements don't still do some of those.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they don't get paid for any work that isn't done by December 31.
Good.
All right, if there are no further questions, we will move on to citizen comments. Anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close citizen comments and move on to matters for members of the board. Mr. Martin? Mr. Pugh?
I have nothing.
Ms. Moore?
No, nothing.
Actually, I have two things. Mr. Rogers, a constituent called me and wanted to know why he couldn't pay his taxes with a credit card. Do you know the answer to that?
No, ma'am.
Can you check into it for me?
I thought that was possible
I
myself.
thought so too, but then I didn't see any way to do it.
I know there's a fee.
Huh?
I think you have to pay.
You can use a debit card. Yeah.
You know, I'll-
I should have asked her when she was here, and I did that. The second thing is, Clay Stewart from Stewart Computer called this week and was talking. Anyway, the company that is acquiring him is just about closed, but they've already put resources and people into that office. I actually they sent a person out to my house to work on my internet this week.
River Street.
River Street, yeah, not Five Rivers, River Street. They want to approach the board. I told him, talk to you.
Yes, we're setting up a meeting, I think, to
Yeah,
talk first.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Board members, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.